Hello everybody, hi. I hope everything goes well. This is the lecture for topic 3, part 3. This subtopic is about activity-based costing. I hope you can still remember ABC is a costing system. Costing system means the method that you can use to calculate cost per unit of a product. Before this, we have discussed two costing systems. The first one is the job costing system, and the second one is the process costing system. This is number 3, ABC system. Okay, the ABC system is an advanced version of traditional costing system. Traditional costing system is the costing system that you have learned before when we covered the topic about the job costing system. Traditional costing system is a system that uses predetermined overhead rate to calculate the overhead cost of a product. Okay, remember when you do job costing system, to calculate the cost for a job, you add direct material cost plus direct labor cost plus overhead cost, and then to calculate the overhead cost you use predetermined overhead rate. So that kind of calculation is called traditional costing system, the system that has been used many years ago, maybe 100 years ago, since 100 years ago. So ABC system is a newer and supposed to be a better costing system. Okay, ABC system was developed in the 1980s, so it is still new compared to the traditional costing system. Okay, just to refresh your memory about the traditional costing system, let's see this sample situation or scenario. Client company expect to incur 800,000 in overhead costs this coming year. Okay, this is data, a budgeted data, and the cost is 200,000 related to the cut and polish department and 600,000 related to the quality control department. And then the second thing is total annual direct labor costs are expected to be 160,000. And then the labor hour is 25,000 for the cut and polish department and 50,000 hours for the quality control department. So focus on the requirement 1. Assume client company allocates overhead costs with the plant-wide approach, and direct labor cost is the allocation base. Calculate the rate used by the company to allocate overhead costs. So this is about traditional costing system. So let's see how to answer the question 1. Using the traditional costing system, you use the predetermined overhead rate to calculate the overhead cost. So predetermined overhead rate, the formula is estimated or budgeted overhead cost divided by the estimated allocation base or budgeted allocation base. So in this scenario, the overhead cost, the budgeted overhead cost is 800,000. The budgeted allocation base is 160,000, which is the direct labor cost. So the predetermined overhead rate for this scenario is $5 overhead for every $1 direct labor cost. Okay. So this is the traditional system. So now we see what is the activity-based costing system and how it works. Okay, activity-based costing system uses several cost pools organized by activity to allocate overhead costs. The idea is that activities are required to produce products, and the cost of the activities should be allocated to products based on the product's use of the activities. So when you use traditional costing system, you use only one allocation base. Most of the time it is either labor hour or machine hour. In the previous scenario, the business uses direct labor cost. Okay, the traditional system uses only one allocation base. But when you use ABC system to calculate the cost, the overhead cost, you use several allocation bases, and this allocation basis is related to how many activities a business has to do to produce one product. So for example, let's say you we use the example that we have before. In the class, we take a soft drink business as an example. So let's say you have a soft drink business. If you use traditional costing to calculate the cost for one bottle of the product, then you calculate the direct material, direct labor, and when you calculate the overhead, you have to use the predetermined overhead rate. Maybe you will use machine hour to calculate the overhead, the predetermined overhead rate, because we can assume that manufacturing business that produce soft drink, most of the time they are machine intensive. Okay, that is traditional costing system. But if you want to use ABC system to calculate the unit cost for this soft drink, you have to use several allocation bases, and these allocation bases has to be based on the activities, the production activities that you do to produce the soft drink. Maybe to produce the soft drink, you have to do 4 activities. So you will use 4 allocation bases to calculate the overhead cost for the soft drink. Okay, let's see. There are more explanation about this. Okay, so when you use the ABC system to calculate cost for your product, you have to allocate the cost according to the activities. And these are the typical production activities that will happen in a factory. The first one is purchasing materials. So if you have a factory that produces something, you will have this activity. You have to purchase material for your production. The second activity that always happen is setting up machinery. Setting up machinery means when you want to produce your product, you have to set up the machine. What is the ingredient? How many liters or milliliters for each soft drink, etc. You have to set the machine. For cola drink, this is the setting. For orange juice, this is the setting. For what else? for an isotonic drink, this is the setting. So you have to set the machine every time you want to produce your product. And then assembling products. So in many manufacturing businesses, they have to do the assembly. For businesses that produce toys, for example, or a small computer, for example, they have to assemble something. Assemble means to put components together to make it a finished product. And the number 4 typical activity is the running machines. Okay, and number 5 is the inspecting finished product. This thing should happen in every factory. In every factory, after they have completed the production process for a product, there will be an additional activity, that is the inspection activity, to make sure that the product is has no defects and according to the spec required by the business or the customer. Okay, so this is the steps that you have to do when you want to use ABC costing, ABC system, to calculate cost per unit for product produced by a business. Okay, step 1, you have to identify activities required to complete a product. So remember, this calculation is focused on how to calculate the overhead cost for the product. The direct material cost and direct labor cost are direct costs. They can be calculated easily. But the overhead cost is indirect cost, so you have to use the system to calculate the overhead cost. So first, you have to identify the activities required to complete a product. So let's say you produce a soft drink, you want to use ABC to calculate the cost for this soft drink. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to identify the activities related to the production of the soft drink. So let's say there are 3 activities. After you have identified the activities, the second thing that you have to do is you have to assign the overhead cost to the activities identified in step 1. So if there are 3 activities, then you have to estimate how much is the cost for how much is the overhead cost for activity 1, overhead cost for activity 2, and overhead cost for activity 3. And number 3, after you have assigned the overhead cost, number 3, you have to identify the cost driver for each activity. Cost driver means factor that causes the cost to increase and decrease. So you have identified 3 activities, so you have to identify the cost driver for each activity. For example, if the activity is if the activity is bottling, what do you think the factor that will cause the bottling cost increase or decrease? It must be the number of bottle or the quantity of bottle. For example, if the activity is assembly, then what do you think factor that will causes the assembly cost increase or decrease? I think the factor is the number of component, for example. Okay, so after you have identified the cost driver is the allocation base. Okay, after you have identified the cost driver, you do the step 4, which is to calculate the predetermined overhead rate for each activity. And then you do the number 5, allocate overhead costs to the product. Okay, so I think there is an example here. Okay, so this is an example. Okay, implementing ABC at a Sailrite company. Okay, this is a company. The name of the company is Sailrite. Okay, let's see. I think to make it easy for you to understand how to use ABC costing in a business, you have to assume that this is your company. So you have a company. Sailrite company is your company. So you want to use ABC to allocate costs to the product or to each product. So what should you do? The step 1 is you have to identify the activities required to complete the product. So the Sailrite company determined that these are the activities that have the biggest impact on the cost, overhead cost. So this company has identified 5 activities: purchasing material, set up machine, running machines, assembling product, and inspecting finished product. So after you have identified the activities, you have to do the second step. The second step is to assign overhead costs to the activities identified in the step 1. Remember, I have told you before, in accounting, okay, we have told you in the class that the good practice for a business is, before a new year is started, the business has to prepare a budget. So this business is doing that kind of practice. So they have prepared a budget. They have said that the overhead cost, the total overhead cost is $8 million. So the step 2 is you have to divide this $8 million into these 5 activities. So in this example, the first activity is 1.2 million, second activity is 1.6, third activity is 2.7 million, fourth activity is 1.5 million, the fifth activity is allocated 1 million. Okay, these are estimates. After the business has identified costs related to every activity, then the business has to do step number 3, which is to identify the cost driver for each activity. So remember, cost driver is a factor that can cause us a cost to increase or decrease. So in this example, the purchasing material activity, the cost driver is the purchase requisition. The higher the purchase requisition, the higher the cost related to the purchase of material. So setting up machine activity. So logically, the more setting ups, the more cost. So that's why the cost driver is the machine setups. Okay, see here, the assembling product. So in this example, the cost driver is the direct labor hours. The more the assembling activity has to be done, the more labor hours. So the higher the labor hours, the higher the assembly cost. Okay, this is the step number 3. After the cost driver have been identified, you have to calculate the predetermined rate for every activity. So remember the calculation of predetermined overhead rate? The overhead cost divided by the allocation base or the cost driver. So see here, the estimated overhead cost is for activity 1 is 1.2 million divided by the allocation base 10,000 purchase requisition. So the predetermined overhead rate is 120 per requisition. Number 3, the activity is running machines. The cost driver is machine hours. The estimated or budgeted overhead cost is 2.7 million. The estimated allocation base is 90,000 machine hours. So 2.7 million divided by 90,000 machine hours. The predetermined overhead rate is $30 per machine hours. So same. We have to calculate the cost driver, the overhead rate for every activity. And then after you have calculated the rate, and then you do to the step number 5. You allocate overhead cost to the product. So here, there are two products, basic sailboat and the deluxe sailboat. So you have calculated the predetermined overhead rate here, 120 per requisition, 800 per setup, $30 per machine hour, $6 per direct labor hour, and $50 per inspection hour. So for the basic sailboat, the cost driver for the first activity is 7,000 requisition. So how to calculate the overhead allocated? $120 times 7,000. You will get the 840,000. For the deluxe sailboat, the cost driver is 3,000 requisition. So how to calculate the overhead allocated? $120 times 3,000 requisition. You will get 360,000. So, and then we see the activity number 2. The activity is set up machines. The predetermined overhead rate is 800 per setup. Basic sailboat requires 1,100 setups. So how much is the overhead allocated for the basic sailboat for this activity? So $800 per setup times 1,100 setups. The overhead allocated is 880,000. The deluxe sailboat is required only 900 setups. So how much is the overhead related to this activity for this product? $800 times 900 setups, you will get $720,000. So you have to do that for every activity, and after that you calculate the total. So here the total overhead cost, allocated overhead cost for the basic sailboat is $5,020,000. For the deluxe sailboat is $2,980,000. Okay, so now you can calculate the overhead cost per unit for each product also. You have to, if you want to calculate the overhead cost per unit for each product, then you divide the total overhead cost by the product quantity. Okay, these are the 5 steps that you have to do when you use the ABC system to calculate overhead cost for your product. Okay, I hope you can see some other sample questions or sample scenarios in other sources. You can use the Willy Plus. or other online sources to see the sample or scenarios related to ABC. Okay, let's see what are the advantages of ABC. Okay, the main advantage of using ABC compared to the traditional costing is, most of the time ABC will provide more accurate cost information compared to the traditional system. The basic reason why ABC will provide more accurate cost information is ABC uses more allocation basis compared to the traditional costing. In the scenario that we have seen earlier, if you use the traditional costing system, you use only one allocation base. When you use ABC, you will use 5 allocation bases. So the more allocation bases, the more accurate your cost allocation. The second advantage of using ABC is, when you use ABC in your business, it will increase your knowledge about the production activities. Why it increases your knowledge about the production activities? Because when you implement ABC in your business, the first step is you have to identify activities related to the production. And when you know about the activities related to your production, it will be easier for you to improve the production process. Okay, that is the second advantages. There are several disadvantages of using ABC. Okay, first, the number one disadvantage of ABC is it can be a costly system to implement. Sometimes a business production process is very complex, then it is very difficult to implement the ABC. When the production process is very complex, there are many activities, so then it is going to be very difficult for the business to use ABC. Whereas and then the number two is, sometimes the overhead cost is a fixed cost. So when the overhead cost is a fixed cost, then it is very difficult to find a cost driver for that cost. If you choose a cost driver, then most of the time the cost driver is not very good in reflecting the increment or decrement of the cost for the activity. Sometimes it is very difficult to implement the ABC. So the benefit of ABC, of implementing the ABC in one business, is less than the cost. So that is not good. And number 4 is, some employees may not like the ABC. If you have a business that has been run from like let's say you have a family business that has been run like many years, 40-50 years ago. Then suddenly you want to introduce ABC system. So you, most of the time, you will face resistance by the people who are used to the traditional system. So ABC is a new system. Some employees cannot accept this new idea. Okay, that is the costing system. This is some additional knowledge for you. Understand the concept of activity-based management. So ABC is a costing system. It is related to how to calculate cost. But activity-based management is a bigger thing. Activity-based management is a management practice that focus on activities. So ABM, or activity-based management, is a bigger thing. ABC is a subset of ABM. ABC is only related to costings. So ABM is a bigger thing. So many modern businesses now, they use ABM, the management practice that focus on activities. ABM can, most of the time, is good to improve the production process. When the production process is good, then the cost will become lower, and then most of the time the profit will become bigger. So these are the, okay, let's see. Activity-based management requires 3 steps. See, it requires 3 steps, and the focus is on the activities. So you have to aware that activity-based costing also can be used in a service business. Okay, for example, if you have a hotel, you run a hotel. So you run a hotel, there are many overhead costs. So how to allocate the overhead costs to every customer that comes to the hotel? So you can use ABC to calculate the overhead cost for every customer or every service. You have to identify the process. So let's say, what will happen to what will you do when a customer come to your hotel? First, you have to have the ordering process, isn't it? The customer make orders or make a booking process. Then when the customer comes, there is a process to manage the rooms, to the registration, etc. And then another process is to provide meals to the customer, maybe free breakfast and etc. And then another process is to clean the room during the stay and after the stay. So there are processes. So you can use ABC to calculate cost for every customer. And then in hospital, I have heard that many private hospitals, they use ABC to calculate cost for every patient. Here are examples from US. There are several American Airlines, American Express, Amtrak, QS, etc. Okay, the way to use ABC in a service business is same. You have to follow the 5 steps. Some banks also use ABC system. Okay, this is a case study. Okay, this is hierarchy of cost. Remember, I have told you, and also you have seen in the previous slide, the first step in the implementation of ABC is you have to identify activities of production. That is the first step. You have to identify activities related to the production of your product or of your business product. So in the scenario or examples that we have seen earlier, there are 5 activities. Okay. When you want to identify these activities, you have to have this knowledge about hierarchy of cost. This knowledge will help you to identify the activities, and then after that to identify the cost driver for every activity. So when you want to in ABC, the cost can be grouped or can be categorized based on this classification. Okay, the cost maybe is a facility level cost, or a product or customer level cost, or batch level cost, or unit level cost. Okay, facility level activities of course are costs that are required to sustain the facility operation. Costs that the business has to pay to make sure that the business can be continued. For example, the building rental and factory management cost. The product level activities are costs. Product level activity costs are costs related to every unit of product. For the examples are product development and advertising. So when you advertise for a product, for a group of products. For example, advertisement for soft drink A, and then if for soft drink B, you have to do another advertisement. So this is called product level cost. Batch level cost is cost that the business has to pay related to or according to a batch of production. Most businesses, when they produce something, they produce in batches. Soft drink business, maybe they produce at once 1,000 bottle, and then produce another 1,000 bottle. So this 1,000 bottle is called a batch. One batch, second batch, third batch. So if there is a cost that the business has to pay according to the batch of production, then we call it batch level cost. So here the example is machine setups. So you set up the machine, to produce a certain or a batch of product. When you set up the machine, you produce 1,000 bottle soft drink, and then you want to produce another 1,000 bottle of soft drink, you have to set up the machine again. So quality inspection also is done according to batches. Unit level activity is the activity or cost related to produce individual unit of product. For example, energy to run machines, direct labor or direct material. Direct material cost is a unit level cost. For every product, you have to use certain amount of material, etc. Okay, these are another cost hierarchy examples. And that's it. Thank you very much. Bye bye.